Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So, guys, we're going to go in a little deeper with some fascinating stuff that Cindy was picking up doing a little remote viewing. And many of you guys might be familiar with remote viewing. It's something that's been done by the U.S. and by the Soviet Union back in the days when it was the Soviet Union, Russia now. And really, how much has really changed when we get down to it. The governments of this world use this technique. It's something that's an innate ability in all of us to a degree.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's definitely something everyone can do, just to what extent, and it does take some practice, but we all have it inside of us to reach out into the ether and get that information and translate it.
And before we get going, as always, please do subscribe both channels and share these videos as much as possible because we can alter history. It's not set in stone. Yeah, certain things might be somewhat inevitable, but we can have a big impact on the way these things play out. And again, it's both channels, which each one has unique videos, EEARTS and Evolutionary Energy Arts. So please do join us on both places. And you see this, and right away this just makes me think about, again, how there's constant programming going on. Russia brought 5,000 textbooks on Russian history, language, and literature into one of Mariupol's schools. All Ukrainian materials were removed. Amid rubble and dead bodies, occupants planned to Russify kids in some schools over the summer, prepare them for the next school year. And so she's a Ukrainian journalist. But what this makes me think of is the bigger picture. The burning of not just the library in Alexandria, which had so much material that would change our history as we know it, because history, again, is written by the victors. So, if Russia is going to hang on to Mariupol, and we don't know yet what that's going to look like or if they're going to be able to do that, then these kids are going to get a whole different set of indoctrinations than if they didn't take over. Yet, this whole globe is about indoctrination after indoctrination. And for some people, it's painful to recognize that they've been indoctrinated.
Mm-hmm. It's painful and it's difficult because you spent much time in your life understanding these things, understanding these belief systems, and there's a lot of your soul tied into it. And then when you realize, hey, something's not sitting right, and you have to unravel everything you learned, it can be a moment of big proportions when you have to sit with that and say, okay, I have to relearn everything I thought I knew. But that's where it starts. Once you reach that point, then you're really starting to get in there and understand things at a deeper level. And that's when you know that the pineal gland is starting to do its job.
Absolutely. And so it happens at a very, very young age. And I don't think we even really recognize it so much. Do you guys remember going to school? Having to stand up, children, put your hand over your heart. The Pledge of Allegiance, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the, one nation under God, the whole thing. So we say this from childhood. We say this from childhood when we don't really even get it. Mm-hmm. But yet it's going in our mind. We're sending out a signal to every cell in the body. We're starting to codify a belief system. Think about it if you've ever been to a Catholic ceremony and you see the Nicene Creed. Well, the Nicene Creed came about in 325 AD, and that was 300 years after Yeshua, and they came up with one set creed for everybody to follow and adopt. And anybody that at first didn't want to adopt it, a little bit of coercion would go on. Eventually, it would lead to actual excommunication and even being put to death if you didn't go along with the belief system. And so this is the Nicene Creed because they debated on these things. This was not set in stone. And, you see part of it here is believe in one Lord Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God. That was debated on. Born of the Father before all ages. So this was not something that was in common agreement until they did this particular convention, which there's conventions going on, left and right. We just had a WEF convention coming up with a new, maybe new, but a continuation of their plans to be put into effect. And then we had the Bilderberg group, and now we're going to have a G7 meeting, one after another, shaping our future, shaping also our history in so many ways, as they basically own the media. So, they control everything that's getting out there. And again, the church was extremely powerful. So until they came up with the Nicene Creed, it wasn't, it was not set in stone, although you would think it, because again, this world has over 1 billion Catholics and over 2 billion Christians. Add to that, closing in on 2 billion Muslims, and you have basically 2/3 of the world that are coming out of the same belief system. And it basically is conditioning that leads to us to see the world through a certain lens. Because anytime we say something repetitively, or you just know it in your mind, even little jingles, think about little advertising jingles that just stick in your mind. You might find yourself humming one day, and it causes you to look at something in a particular light. And of course, the conditioning is always to be favorable. So when we see this, right off the bat, this just is another thing of controlling history, controlling minds. And here you see a tweet, and it says Vladimir Putin stated he wanted to reintroduce the mother hero order in Russia. This made an impression. There's no similar order in Russia. This is a mistake, right? And so bringing it in line with the whole, the way the Nazi speak was motherland, the motherland. And then, as soon as we had 9/11 and we had homeland security, homeland, motherland, it just, to me, it reeked totally of NAZI, completely. And this is how they keep us at each other, by promoting a patriotic belief that our particular piece of earth that we happen to be born in is the best, wherever that is, whether that's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's the US, the UK, Germany, wherever. It's that belief, we're the best. Well, we're the best at what? We're just the best. Has to be. That's what I was brought up believing.
Mm-hmm. And also look at that system where they put the belief that you own part of Earth. That's yours. This is mine. So it's further feeding that root chakra to get people to be defensive of it, because they have that mind feeling, that I feeling. So it's done at such a young age. It's not like you can really judge anyone for feeling proud of this, because they're indoctrinated before they even really know any difference about that there is another belief system out there.
Yeah, Semper Fi, always faithful. Always faithful to who? Whoever's in power. You're just faithful to a certain structure. Well, how about all the people that were born into Nazi Germany in that time period? Could they believe what was really, being whispered? I think a lot of them they couldn't believe it, because, they couldn't believe that there was such darkness in the motherland or the fatherland, however you want to view it. And I think a lot of people are going through this awakening today here in the U.S. and recognizing, things aren't what we were told. Cindy's she's just shaking her head.
I'm not even remotely. And, the rabbit hole goes deep. And that's why I suggest you guys just pace yourself, be patient with yourself, and take it as it comes.
So when you have Putin saying that they're fighting the NAZIs over in Ukraine, and so many levels, there's this obvious reference to something that, there is and there isn't truth involved. Because what really went on, Germany lost World War II, at least that's what the history books say. But many people have caught on that the belief, the ideology of the National Socialists, it didn't necessarily lose. It just changed. It morphed. And, we've seen a lot of technology be declassified. Mind-blowing technology that, as we, look at the historical side of things, you got to ask yourself, when you really look deep into the Axis powers and how much of a push they did to dominate the globe, in reality, if you really look at the natural resources, the manpower, and the capabilities, there's no way they should have even a remote chance at winning, because they were vastly outnumbered. The other countries had so much more collective natural resources, and yet, they did amazingly well early. And of course, it is part of a script that's underway. You always got to have the bad guys looking like they're going to threaten the world. They're going to win. Oh my God. We can't have this. We got to rally the troops. And of course, the bad guys, the white hats and the black hats, it all depends on what side of the fence you're born on. Isn't it true?
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And just think about when we go to school before a game, they always have these pep rallies. So there is another example of how early they start us to pick a side.
So you can see January 1st, 1943, the red is the as the Axis allied, and the nations under control is in the pink, and then the black is the allies. And when we look in, Germany went in and split Poland with the Soviet Union, and they had a non-aggression pact, which later on Germany abandoned. And again, if they didn't open up that second front and just force their entire troops and their focus to be on the UK, and didn't get the U.S. involved, they probably would have won that at that point. There is a series, I forget what it's called. Oh, The Man in High Castle, that talks about if they had won. But did they really lose is the question. Did they really, really lose? If you look at the weapons and manpower, you could look at the tanks produced between 1940 and 1945. As you see, USA produced 88,500, the USSR 102,000, Germany 46,000, Japan 3,400, and Great Britain 20,000. So total tanks produced by Allied forces over 4 to 1. Over 4 to 1. Now, the quality was the thing. Germany had some of the best equipment on the planet. And again, how did they get that? They had just lost 20 years earlier the First World War. And they had a treaty put in place that made the German people feel horrible. And it actually made them feel horrible enough to where they would even accept somebody coming up as a Hitler. And the Nazis and the communists were fighting amongst each other for that control. Look at the warships, too. As you can see, total warship production, tonnage, almost 5 to 1. That's a huge advantage. Huge advantage. When we look at every single category and manpower, an overwhelming advantage for the Allies against the Axis. As you could see, warplane production again, 582,000 to 174,000. And combined manpower as well. Overwhelming. And when we look to today, that's something else people should take a look at. The manufacturing capabilities and all. If you are going to look at a China, Russia, and others alliance against the U.S. and NATO alliance, again, what's happened to the U.S.? All the production's been sent abroad. There's some that's coming back or started to come back. But, as we're going to cover on Evolutionary, there's some key components that China has that will basically hamstring the U.S. and NATO. So how did they do so good did they have extraterrestrial help? And do check out evolutionaryenergyarts.com. And we want to thank our supporters on Patreon and Ko-Fi. And there is a link to medicinal foods on every video as well. Make sure to use coupon code EEA and get a discount. It does support the channel. Was there an alien, extraterrestrial, interdimensional Nazi alliance?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. There was such an alliance. There was a lot of working together. And, you know, as I remote view this information now, what came back was, well, for me, it's disturbing because I don't completely understand it. But when I looked at Hitler, I didn't see him as dead. I saw him as a being that was still on a realm where he could affect change and not necessarily good change. So when I looked at his cells, they had this silvery, sparkly look to it. So he's in a place where he's able to recharge his energy, recharge his body. And it's between the lower fourth and going up a little further in the fourth dimension, where he's able to have some control over everything that's going on right now. And do I understand it all? No. It's just the information came flooding in, and like I said, I'm not comfortable with it, but there's still a play here. And also what I received is the fallen Pleiadians very much have a part that they're still playing in this. And while we're in that darkness of the Kali Yuga, they're going to continue to do this. And the other thing that the guides were telling me is how important it is for people to be in that space of healing their traumas, because there's so much trauma that went on just by growing up in our system. And as long as you are healing those traumas and connecting to your higher self, that brings in a built-in mechanism that is going to give you protection from these energies, so that you're not just used as a puppet as well. Like so many others that are leading, that we can see their faces on our TV screens, they are puppets. And this is something that they definitely don't want us talking about, and they don't want us to know about it for sure.
So you get Hitler was not killed in his bunker.
No, not at all. This was a total distraction to get him reacclimated in another place.
And you were seeing that the environment feels like he's actually in a Earth environment, but the exterior is very cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. He is feeling in that environment that I don't really understand, but I can see it, and it's a place where he's able to rejuvenate himself.
Yeah, very interesting. Absolutely. Like, we had done a video over here, and Cindy was channeling this 300-year-old Qigong master who basically, just through the use of intention, eating minimally, taking in certain herbs, and just knowing that you're taking in the life force with every single breath, consciously doing that, he really did keep himself alive for, maybe 3 to 4 typical lifespans in the Kali Yuga. And now again, we've talked so many times about how the human lifespan, when we get out of the Kali Yuga, it jumps up to the biblical lifespan of people like Methuselah, 1,000 years, right? 969 years. So we have the potential to live much, much longer than we do. And actually, part of the whole healthcare system that we have put in place is to make sure that we don't. That's the bottom line. Because if we just think about the wisdom, if I had all this clear picture that I have now at 57, at say 20, oh boy, things would have progressed a lot differently. I think I could have been much more effective in my life. And think about if at, say, 60, you're only 25% into your life, maybe even less. Think about the changes we can really manifest when we have that type of wisdom and experience and understanding. And again, it's why it's so important to not fall prey to their system, because their system's designed to calcify the pineal gland, to dull our minds, to give away our creative ability. Snowden had some documents that also showed that these ETs with that NAZI connection, are actually in control of the U.S. And, it says controlled since at least 1945 by shadowy aliens known as the Tall Whites. Yeah, we've seen them on Area 51. As many of you guys might know, we lived in Nevada Cindy lived there for decades, but I was with her there for about 18, 20 months. And we could feel them all the time. We could feel, and also we could feel the Draco, the Greys making their rounds on a regular basis, a routine basis. And we had all sorts of wild encounters in the desert with different beings and seeing different ships in the skies. Yes, there are many different species involved here. And you might have caught that Cindy was talking about fallen Pleiadians, because when you think about angels, a lot of times people picture these angels as having, a pale white skin and golden hair. And when we think of Pleiadians, that's kind of what comes to mind. And there are these fallen, quote unquote, Pleiadians that would be visible to us on the 3D that are just that. They've been conquered and they've been assimilated into this Draco Borg collective. And unfortunately, these beings are under the power of dark beings. So even though, they are from a species that we would typically view as benevolent and friendly, these particular ones have basically fallen under the dark side, so to speak.
It's really simple to think about, because we look at humans and there's all kinds of shades of different humans who have different needs, desires, wants, abilities. Well, they too have different abilities, different mindsets, and sometimes for some beings, they do find it to be advantageous for them to go ahead and go a more darker route. And I have seen them in Antarctica, in a room, at a table, discussing information with other entities about how things are going to unfold in our future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, according to these documents, this is how the Nazis went from having 57 subs to 1,163, and how their technology advanced so fast. And, they actually made the first jet engines, and they were working also on atomic bombs and all. Now, these ETs, I don't believe they care who really wins, so to speak. They're all about creating loosh. So they know that they have very powerful allies that feed off of the negative emotions. And so they have to create a constant state of warfare, pain, suffering, misery, in order to feed these certain beings that then are used as kind of like lapdogs, so to speak. They're set out on people and set out against any that they need to work on in a negative way.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, to help yourself understand that, just sit and look at what the MSM is talking about all day. I mean, there's very few moments where they're talking about happy things. It's usually a spiraling downward type of mood that it puts people in.
Absolutely. And so, it's fascinating to see all this ties together. Yeah, there is a reason why the mainstream wants to focus on the negative. It's because it creates energy that then feeds these other beings. Now, it makes it tricky for people like us, because we want to wake up the world to what's going on. Of course, we don't want to feed the energy, but at the same time, if all of us just put our head in the sand and didn't do anything, then they would just prey on those that they could prey on. And that just is not a good thing. So this is a look inside the bunker that Hitler supposedly was living in the last days before he supposedly shot himself, and they burnt the bodies of him and Eva Braun. As you see this reproduction, and Cindy was right away saying, what a wonderful piece of work by the FBI.
Right, from the alphabets. They did a good job.
Yeah, the FBI and CIA, again, it's all about controlling the narrative. Controlling the narrative is the key. And so, yeah, I mean, the death, the destruction, it's all basically part of the system. When we see these skulls or parts of skulls that they supposedly found in the area, Cindy did pick up energy of very, very kind of nasty beings.
Oh, they are. They're very horrible. Yes, these are definitely real, and their energy is just awful.
Yeah, so we've seen these declassified designs. This is very, very real. And, you know, again, there was somebody that was saying everything is just time-traveling Nazi aliens. But, you know, this is much bigger than even that. And there are all different sorts of beings in this universe. And they're leaking more and more of this out all the time. And it's a fast leak now. It's starting to become a fast leak. Our galaxy, it resembles more a Star Wars movie than probably anything else that we really have to compare it with.
Right. I mean, when the cloaking is turned off, look at those skies, because they're going to be completely unfamiliar. We have so many different entities in our skies, and you guys pick up a lot on that, because we get a lot of pictures from people who take pictures of the clouds. Well, guess what? You are picking up on these energies, and that's why you're feeling compelled. Sometimes it might be an angel, it might be an entity, it could be star beings that are actually watching out for you, but definitely the skies are full nonetheless.
Absolutely. And yeah, even the swastika, you know, is again another perversion of something that was a positive symbol in Hinduism. Again, twisted and distorted. But that's exactly what they do. They twist and distort everything. New Swabia, New Schwabenland. So again, where he is right now, Cindy sees that the exterior is very, very cold, but where he is, it's nice. It's actually very, very conducive to light. And yeah, there are inner Earth civilizations that are very advanced. There are civilizations in the oceans as well, right out there in the oceans. And then we're surrounded by life on many other planets. And yeah, we had somebody commenting on the flat Earth. And so the question to him then was, are all planets, do you view every single planet out there as flat? Every single planet is flat? Or are you saying there are no other planets? For those that are of that persuasion, the flat Earth persuasion. So do you think we're just it, and there is nothing else out there, and Earth itself is flat? Now, it's interesting that science, just to go off on a tiny tangent, is starting to say that Earth might very well be a hologram, a 3D hologram of a 2D reality. But again, that hologram tends to be kind of spherical.
Right. It's kind of like puff paint.
Exactly. So, I mean, we see over and over all these different saucers. And then, as many know, Operation Paperclip, we took in so many of their top scientists, and Werner von Braun, even went on to be up there at the helm of NASA, of course. Never a straight answer, not right from the beginning. Again, it's all about control. And like Cindy was alluding to, we were both showed a few weeks ago when they will no longer be covering up the ships. So many people talk about Project Bluebeam and a fake alien invasion, and it's going to look like aliens are coming, and it's really just all holograms. But really, it's the holograms that have been blurring the ships coming going all along.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. There's going to be a show, and just, stay on guard when all this opens up. Stay cautious, hold yourself together, and don't get on those first ships.
Absolutely, because you will see beings that they're going to say is the Galactic Federation. We've been telling you this for a while. And they will be what Cindy's calling the fallen Pleiadians. So, again, many of us on different sides of the fence, so to speak, when it comes to belief systems, are talking about the same thing. Fallen angels, fallen Pleiadians. Just, again, there's a certain mindset. So I think people want to hang on to that fallen angel mindset because they want Jesus to come back with his army and put them all to an end and have 1,000-year perfect millennial reign. They want the rest of it. And that's why they stick to they're all fallen angels. But when you look at the bigger picture, there's life everywhere. And, yes, angel originally just meant a messenger. That was the first, translation of it. And we knew in the ancient days that there were beings that were coming and going from Earth all the time. It's only because we are in this dark Kali Yuga that the illusion of it being just us out here is being put into effect, and now they're not going to be able to keep that illusion going. So they got to control the narrative. So they're letting us know there are extraterrestrials, there are interdimensional beings that are interacting with our governments, but they're going to introduce them as the good guys, and those will be the first ones that you see. And the ones that are introduced while the powers that be are still in play and still controlling the narrative, those are obviously going to be the ones that they're working with the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you really want to be in a state of healing. You always want to be in this state of connecting with your higher self, because that's your built-in safety mechanism right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we are getting closer to the benevolent ones. And meanwhile, beings like this, they're still there. They're still there. This battle still goes on. It goes on for him in the shadows. But again, it's an infiltration by beliefs and belief control systems that has so locked down the planet. And all that's going to crumble. All these old paradigms are going to just absolutely crumble. Because, again, this is the apocalypse, the great unveiling. And so all this is going to be revealed to the masses. And it will be shocking for many.
Mm-hmm. Hang on tight.
Absolutely. As always, guys, really look forward to your comments. Much love. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.